My name is Jay McCrae. I'm the interim CEO at Grantmakers for Effective Organizations. Welcome to Seattle for our learning conference. It's great to be here with you all. This is actually our third conference in Seattle. Our first one was in 2004. It was our national conference. It was actually the first conference that I participated in. I was in grad school. I was an intern at the time. And it was such a meaningful experience for me to be with the GEO community. You all are a community who are really dedicated to your own learning and to improving your practices so you can be in more service of nonprofits and communities. So after that conference, I was totally hooked, and I've been with GEO for 16 years now. As many of you know, GEO's had a long-standing commitment to learning and evaluation. We merged with Grantmakers Evaluation Network in 2003, and we've been doing a learning conference roughly every other year since then. In fact, right here in this hotel is where we had our first learning conference. It was a small gathering before our national conference in 2004. It had the scintillating title that only a true nonprofit geek could love. It was our knowledge management conference. And we realized that what we were talking about was how we could learn to make our organizations better. This is the 8th time that we've had a learning conference. This is a time for us to be thinking about learning for engagement and engaging nonprofits and community in learning and evaluation work. It all started right here in this hotel, actually. To make lasting progress towards our goals, we must be constantly learning because it's the only way to know what's working. We can use learning and evaluation to push ourselves to experiment and find opportunities for growth. We also need to look around and find out what others, including nonprofits, community members, and other stakeholders, are learning about how to achieve the changes we want to see. So that's why we're here. Now, I need to get serious with you for a moment, but first I need my shades. Oh, what are these? These are GEO sunglasses. Now, for real, it says GEO on the side. The color is Changemaker Orange. I'm not kidding, that's what it is in our palette. Changemaker Orange. And you may be thinking, those are pretty cool shades. Where can I buy some of those? Well, I'm sorry to disappoint, but they're not for sale. However, our member survey is open right now. And when you take the survey as a conference participant, you can get a free pair of these glasses. I know. They could be yours. So as you know, as GEO is a community of learning, and we take learning seriously at GEO. We survey members to learn about what impact GEO is having and how we can be better as an organization. The survey went to all member contacts, so you should have received an email. And it's going to be open until June 17th. We hope that you'll take the survey so that we can learn about GEO's own impact and improve the services that we offer you all as members of the community. You can complete the member survey in the app and just click on Connect with GEO, or you can do it in the membership booth, which is in the foyer just outside the plenary space. And so when you complete the survey, and you may be thinking, Jay, I've already done it. I'm on top of things. That's cool. Just take your confirmation email and bring it out there to the membership booth, and you'll get your free sunglasses. And if you're not yet a member, I haven't forgotten about you. When you join, you can also get a free pair of these sweet glasses. So, but you don't need encouragement, right? You all care about learning. That's why you're here. And over the next day and a half, we will have the opportunity to explore topics related to learning and evaluation through breakout sessions, by hearing from thought-provoking short talk speakers, and in plenary sessions like this one. We hope that you came ready to take charge of your work and your own learning, and to return home with tools to support your learning work. I'm looking forward to learning with you while we're here in Seattle. I also want to take a moment to recognize some of the key groups that were involved in making this conference possible. So first, a big thanks to the Planning Committee, led by Iffy Mora of the Margaret A. Cargill Philanthropies. Iffy is not able to join us this year, but she has been a generous, thoughtful leader as the committee worked to shape the program that we'll experience together over the next couple of days. So thank you, Iffy. Yes, thank you. Additionally, I'd like to recognize Paul Baudet of Wilberforce Foundation, who served as the chair of the host committee and led our efforts to host the Learning Conference in Seattle this year. The names of the full planning and host committees are in your program. They're up on the screen as well. And we couldn't do it without the help of these peers. They're willing to do the intense work of vetting content, designing the program, and often offering financial support for the conference. So if you're a member of one of those committees, the host committee or the planning committee, can you please stand? Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for your generous support of the conference. We'd like to also thank the funders who made the conference possible, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Campion Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Marguerite Casey Foundation, Walton Family Foundation, Statewide Capacity Collaborative, and Wilberforce Foundation for their generous contributions of $20,000 or more. The full list of sponsors is in your program and is coming up on your screen right here. So thank you so much to all of our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. I'd like to also recognize the GEO board. Last year, as you may know, GEO celebrated our 20th anniversary, and we also had a leadership transition. The GEO board has been working tirelessly to make sure we're a strong organization through the transition and that we're finding the right leader who can guide us to become the organization we need to be for the next 20 years. So if you're a member of the GEO board, can you also please stand? Okay, great. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce the GEO staff as well. The GEO team works to lead our conference planning process, and we know how hard you've worked to get us here. Would the full GEO team stand and give a wave so folks know who you are? Great. We're all wearing red lanyards, so that makes us easier to spot. And I just want to say, I can't imagine a more thoughtful, committed, hardworking team, and it's really an honor to work with you all, so thank you. And finally, last but certainly not least, we'd like to thank our local partner and co-host, Philanthropy Northwest. Yeah, thank you. With a national membership, GEO often finds ourselves holding these convenings in cities that are far from home. And it's really important that we have strong partners like Philanthropy Northwest to work with. Partnering with Philanthropy Northwest has pushed the way that we think about partnership and has already changed the way we enter these relationships. We appreciate their hard work to get us here. Staff at Philanthropy Northwest have done double duty by serving on both the planning and host committees, offering their expertise and insight, and we appreciate them so much, so thank you. And now I'd like to invite Kiran Ahuja to the stage, who's the CEO of Philanthropy Northwest, to say a few words. So Kiran.
Appreciate the music. How's everybody doing? Yeah? That doesn't sound very energetic going into a GEO Learning Conference. How's everyone doing? Like Jay mentioned, I'm Kiran Ahuja, CEO of Philanthropy Northwest, the largest network of foundations here in the Northwest, consisting of grant makers working in Alaska, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, Wyoming, and Washington. I'm thrilled to be here and partnering with GEO for the 2019 Learning Conference. So on behalf of Philanthropy Northwest, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to Seattle and our region. I don't know many of you in this room, but I do know some of you. And so those of you who do know me know I'm a fairly newcomer to the Northwest, and I continue to be awed by the incredible spirit of giving, volunteerism, and community engagement in the Northwest, including here in the Puget Sound region. Frankly, when I got here, it's almost an expectation that you serve on a nonprofit board, and frankly, multiple boards as your civic and community duty. And at times, I'm still wearing my federal government hat on. I do admit that I worked at the federal government. So many of those years in the federal government, I'm actually very impressed with the level of community engagement that I see, especially by our city and county governments here in the region. And I'm like sometimes, kind of with this DC hat on, at least at the federal level at least, oftentimes mentioning to myself, and this probably doesn't make DC sound so good, but, we would not have asked for input on that particular issue. We would have made that executive decision. So I'm just in awe, and frankly, I know this happens in other parts of the country, just the level of community and civic participation here in the region. So I hope you will witness in small and big ways, from what you read in the paper, to signs and behaviors around town, to even how we seek to tackle some of the really significant issues in our region, like chronic homelessness. And one other noteworthy and important point about our region that I'd like to make, that I'm compelled to say here, is that Seattleites do obey walk signs. Has anyone experienced this at this point? It's an interesting phenomenon for those from the East Coast, and this was my experience. And I admit that I had to get used to it, but now I am totally on board. So let me be clear. Even if there are no cars coming, we wait until we get the signal to walk. Okay, now that we've got that off the... In all seriousness, I've also observed and experienced in the very short time that I've been here unprecedented collaboration and peer-to-peer learning that's leading to innovative solutions and new ideas around critically important issues. So one example of this collaboration is recently we launched the Washington Census Equity Fund in April, which is bringing together more than 20 philanthropic partners, including Philanthropy Northwest, and a statewide pooled fund to support 2020 census outreach and education to ensure a fair, robust, and accurate count. And I'm also proud to say that with this collective effort of philanthropy and community, we were able to leverage almost $20 million from the state to give towards census. And I know that these type of collaborations are taking place across our country and sector related to Census 2020, and I'm very proud to be a part of this really unprecedented response from philanthropy. The themes of this conference around creativity and learning are particularly poignant as philanthropy is increasingly called upon to drive change and create space for the voices of our most marginalized communities. And realizing that if we truly seek unprecedented change and progress, that we do need to apply an analysis and evaluation grounded in equity. As a former civil rights lawyer, I can't tell you how hopeful and excited I am that there is a growing interest and urgency among many in our sector, and it's wonderful to see it as a significant focus at this conference. And in the areas of impact and equity, philanthropy has an opportunity to drive change if we do things right, especially as foundations increase endowments and new foundations and individual donors multiply. So here in the Northwest, overall, giving has increased by almost $300 million in just 2 short years, and with 43% increase in funding by community foundations alone. We're extremely fortunate at Philanthropy Northwest also to house a national consultancy arm called the Giving Practice. Through the Giving Practice's commitment to helping people in philanthropy tackle their biggest challenges, they consistently remind us to think not just about the how of our work, but the why. By intentionally incorporating tools like Philanthropy's Reflective Practices Guide, we're able to show up more authentically, and lean into shared learning and more impactful collaboration. Not to be into too much of self-promotion, but there is a conference session on this topic around reflective practices, so I hope you can join us. And most recently, I'd love to share with you that we've released a guide that's called Powerhouse Convenings just this April that helps us embrace the tensions that often come with co-creation and group processes. These tools, among others, prompt us to question traditional learning and established methods and are enabling us to be more creative in our approaches to supporting communities. The giving practice is also creating space for conversations that make philanthropy more effective, particularly around the principles of DEI. An example of this in our work is around impact investing and exploring how DEI can be applied to foundation investing activities in a recent guide that we've put on this issue, that we've released on this issue. So I just encourage you to check us out at Philanthropy Northwest / the giving practice to take advantage of some of these tools. Both Philanthropy Northwest and the giving practice are committed to ensuring that we show up and give the best of ourselves to this work. And I know you feel the same way, which is why you are here today. So let me end with one value that we hold very dearly in the Northwest, and that is placing high value on the places we reside and visit and on their histories. Honoring place means that we acknowledge that every place we call home has original inhabitants and stewards who are the first peoples of this land. And with that in mind, it's my great honor to introduce to the stage Colleen Echohawk. Colleen is a perfect embodiment of a leader who shows up authentically every day. She's a thought leader and a connector who fearlessly works on behalf of American Indian and Alaska Native peoples. During the day, she is the executive director of the Chief Seattle Club, a nonprofit dedicated to meeting the needs of homeless and low-income Native peoples through critical services and cultural programming. In her spare time, she's a full-time mom, executive director, and advocate. She is also the founder of a coalition to end urban Native homelessness, the co-founder and principal of Headwater People Consulting Group, and was named one of 2018 Seattle Met Magazine 50 Most Influential Women in Seattle. She serves on many boards, and just a few of them are the mayoral appointment to the Community Police Commission, Seattle Foundation, and KUOW Public Radio. Colleen is an enrolled member of the Kitahaki Band of the Pawnee Nation and a member of the Upper Athabascan people of the Mentasta Lake. Please give your very warm welcome to Colleen Echohawk to give her welcome.
Good morning. Whoa. I like that music too. It wasn't Beyonce, so I forgive you. But I did have an experience this morning where I woke up at 5:30 and thought, why not go work out? So I did a bar class at 6 a.m., then I listened to Beyonce, then I drank a ton of coffee, and then I saw my sister, and then I saw my cousin, and so many awesome things are happening. Now I get to see you and invite you warmly to this beautiful city of Seattle. I am very, very fortunate to have been an urban Native person in Seattle for over 20 years now. This is the greatest city in the whole world. So welcome. I hope you have a really good time here. You're gonna love it. I just wanna say warm welcome to all my Seattle people in the crowd. You guys are awesome. Thanks for showing up and being incredible advocates for our community. This conference and this work truly is about community. It truly is about recognizing that every single person has something to contribute to each and every one of us. It's so about looking into everyone's eyes and seeing humanity and goodness, and I'm excited to get to be a part of that with you today. I've been asked to give a land acknowledgement, and before I do that, I want to just remind us why we need land acknowledgements. from my own family and my own perspective, I'm a member of the Pawnee Nation. Our original homelands were in Kansas and Nebraska, and we were moved to Oklahoma. And our reservation is out there in Oklahoma, and it's a loss. It's a deep loss. There was many things that we lost along the way. We're not the only tribe that experienced a trail of tears to a new place that was so foreign and so different. One example is that we're a very strong agricultural community. We brought along with us our seeds that we were going to grow when we got to the new place. It's a place my ancestors called just the hot place. That's what they called Oklahoma, the hot place. And we brought along our seeds, and we were ready to start again. But our seeds wouldn't grow in that new place. And it was remarkable how our community came together with great resilience and strength. And now we have seeds that are growing back in Kansas and Nebraska where they belong. But that loss still reverberates through the community. In our folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness around the country, not the vast majority, but a disproportionate rate are American Indian and Alaska Native. In this city, this beautiful city that is full of vibrant, amazing people and ideas and great wealth, 10% of our homeless population are American Indian and Alaska Native. To me, that is a moral outrage. It is something that we should think about every single night, that the first people of the land are the most likely to be homeless. And this is not just a Seattle statistic. It is a statistic we see all around the country. And that first act of homelessness is when we are removed from our lands. In this very city we're at right now, the Coast Salish people, in 1865, the city of Seattle had a city ordinance that said Native people are not allowed inside the city of Seattle. And so Native people were pushed out. We're right now on their land, their territory. It was a vibrant territory. One of the Muckleshoot tribal members recently told me that the area about a mile away from here where my building is at, or my location at Chief Seattle Club. By the way, check out Chief Seattle Club. It's so great. I could talk so long about that. But they said, this tribal member from the Muckleshoot Nation said, your area you're on right now, Colleen, this is an area we use for duck hunting. And that got me really excited because I know what it's like to duck hunt. I know what it's like to practice a subsistence lifestyle. I did that growing up as a child. And what it means to practice subsistence, it means that you have everything you need to take care of each other. It means that you can support each other. It's so much fun to go out with your community and hunt and gather. It's an incredible feeling. That's the vibrancy of this community that you're in right now. Hundreds of years ago, the Coast Salish people practiced amazing cultural events. They had longhouses that were just incredibly gorgeous and huge. The architecture in Native community was beautiful. And they were all burned down to the ground. Because our culture, our ways, us being, as it's declared in the Declaration of Independence, the merciless savages, was too much. We were too different, we were too extreme. It didn't make sense to the white majority that was pouring into this country. The colonizers and invaders that came in and said that you don't practice what we practice, and so we're gonna burn your houses of worship to the ground. It'd be like burning down the Presbyterian church over here, or a mosque, or a synagogue. And so when we think about land acknowledgement, we have to recognize that there was a loss of culture, a loss of tradition and spirituality that has reverberating effects throughout our community. I don't want to give you all of the terrible statistics, but they're out there. One statistic I want to bring up is that we know that an incredibly small portion of philanthropic dollars go to Native communities. If you want to understand equity, if you want to practice equity, you must think about Native people. We cannot think about it, we cannot act on it, we cannot effectively do equity work without considering American Indian and Alaska Native people and our loss of culture and land. You can't. Yes. Thank you for that applause. Beyonce would be proud. everything goes back to Beyonce for me today. So I want to remind you all, and I want to lift up the Coast Salish people whose land we're on right now. They were the Tulalip, they are the Tulalip, they are the Muckleshoot, the Puyallup, the Snoqualmie, the Suquamish people. They all call this area their home. I invite you to go to their websites. I invite you to follow them on Facebook and see all of the amazing things that they are doing on behalf of their people. I am not from that tribal tradition. I'm not one of these Coast Salish people, so I cannot officially welcome you onto their homelands, but I can offer an acknowledgement. And one of the things that they do in this area is they lift their hands. It's a way of like saying, I acknowledge you, I welcome you, I honor you. And I'll just show you real quick what it looks like. So I want to invite you, as we acknowledge the Coast Salish people, to raise your hands in honor of the Coast Salish community. Thank you so much for doing that. I want to close with a story about my grandma. My sister is here, by the way. Where are you at? My grandma Katie was amazing. She was always welcoming, always so kind, always ready to bring in the most wonderful food that she could to help support you. And I remember really clearly going to visit her as a child and walking into her little log cabin and getting these really awesome hugs. And she gave like the most incredible hugs. She did all of her bathing in a traditional steam bath, so her skin was so soft. And nothing's better than a Grandma Katie hug. And then later on, when I got older and I brought my own babies back to the village, she was so amazing. She would say, I'd give her a quick hug, and then she'd want to hold the baby. And she'd hold the baby, and she'd look at the baby, and she'd rock them back and forth. My daughter Zoe or my son True, rock them. And she would say to them over and over again, I'm your grandma, I'm your grandma. I'm your grandma, I'm your grandma, I'm your grandma. And she would say it over and over again. And it always got me, because what she was doing in that moment is she was claiming them. She was saying, I belong to you, and you belong to me. And you are a part of this community. You're a part of my tribe. We have an uncle who is Lakota, and he used to share this teaching I'm going to share with you now, is that when you are in the same room with someone and you are looking at someone and you're experiencing a conversation with someone, you need to remember that you belong together, that you are related, that you have responsibility to each other. And I share that with you now because you are all going to do some very good work in this space, in this room, the beautiful Weston. I've been here many times. And you're going to work on problems that need your help and your support. We need allies to come to the table and just ask, where are the Native people? Where are the African American community? Where are these people? We're talking about the disparities, but why aren't their voices heard? We need every single one of you to be vigilant about this work, because we belong together. We're connected. We're related. And I want to invite my sister to come and sing a song that we grew up singing in Mentasta Lake Village. This is an Upper Athabascan song. It is a song of celebration. It's a song of excitement. It's a song to remind us all that the work is not done alone. The work is done in community. The work is done in connection to each other. It's also a song that get on your feet and dance to. So I want to invite you to channel your inner Beyonce, bring it back.
We all have an inner Beyonce.
Yes, we do. You're going to get to hear Abigail at the very end of this conference. We didn't know that this was happening, and so we're excited to be the beginning and the end of your conference. But this song is in honor of you, in honor of your work. We invite you. You probably won't be able to sing it, but you can move your bodies. You can you could, like Beyonce, you could do the march, If you have not watched Coachella 2018.
Baychella, to be clear.
Baychella. Seriously, you've got to. It will inspire you forever, okay? All right. We don't sing as good as Beyonce. but this is the song, and it's called Tana Cross. There's also a village in, a neighboring village to our village that has the same name, and it means welcome. So we're excited to do this song for you. We haven't sung it together in a while. Ane, Tana Cross, Ane, Hia, Hia, hey. This is a dance. Hia, Hia, hey, 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 Ane, Ane, Tana Cross, Ane, Hia, Hia, hey, Hia, Hia, Great job. Give yourselves a round of applause. You did super good. I hear it, Carly. That's our cousin over there. Remember how important you are. Remember how significant you are. Your voice, your advocacy, your allyship matters. Thank you for being here. Keep up the good work. Stay connected with me. I'm on Twitter at @CCEchoHawk. I don't think I have it on any of the screens, but I'd love to stay connected. Remember, we're in this together, and your voice matters. So thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
All right, thank you so much. And let's have another round of applause for Colleen Echohawk and Abigail. Thank you. Thank you both to Colleen and Kieran for rooting us in the place where we're coming together over the next couple of days. So we're going to turn now to the next part of our program. I'm going to, well, first I just want to also mention you can find information about Philanthropy Northwest in the conference app. If you haven't downloaded yet, you should do it. There's a lot of great stuff in there. And you can also find information, Colleen's bio and information on the Chief Seattle Club are in there as well. I'd like to invite Lisa Slavitt, our keynote speaker, up to the stage. Lisa will talk to us about how creativity and curiosity work together to enable transformative learning. So Lisa.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Good morning, good people. It's really exciting to be here doing some of my favorite things. I get to talk about creativity and learning, and I get to talk about it with change makers like you all. And also there's a little bit of travel involved for me. How many folks here are traveling from out of city? If you look around the room, that's a lot of us. So thank you to our hosts. Also, what I like to do, what I've been learning as I do leadership development and dive into neuroscience, is a little bit of the mindfulness. So if everyone can, just take a moment to arrive. You can take a deep breath, let your shoulders relax, clear your mind a little bit. Maybe look around the room and start to be really present, and go ahead and take one more deep breath. Thank you, I needed that. Thank you so much. Excited to talk to you all today. They said don't press the laser, I just pressed the laser. About aha moments and the neuroscience of learning. And to me, this is a lot about creativity and connections, and I'm hoping to make it interactive. I'm going to do a little bit of theory, we'll do a little bit of reflection, and then some interaction as well. So during the interaction pieces, we'd love folks to participate and look out for one another and include one another into some of the interactions that we're doing. So I'll be talking a little bit about theories and research into creativity, learning, and aha. We'll also be talking about learning and creativity, and we'll weave in some reflection and interaction because we do have all different learning styles. So we'll blend these all together in ways that are designed for you to have perhaps some of your own aha moments. That's what happens when you take a little bit of the theory if you just take the theory, then we're just memorizing. We want to make it active. We want to make it so that you can connect your own dots. And so that's a little bit of the aha pieces for that too. I also am a little bit playful, so I'm mildly funny, so I'm not going to raise the bar too high. I was traveling once and I got a package of delicious snacks in India, and the back of the package, their motto was "Best if enjoyed." So I was like, I think that's beautiful. So that could be my motto for today as well too. So it's also a good time to, actually what I didn't do is I want to back up a little bit and tell you just a teeny bit about myself. I do a variety of things in the world. I'm lucky to do that and to live creatively through 3 main channels. One of which is I'm the Director of Organizational and Performance Management at UC Santa Barbara, which means I get to do leadership development and strategic planning and some assessment. I don't work there full time because I also do some leadership and consulting for nonprofits and different organizations around the topics of leadership. And I've been doing this for 25 years with students and staff and employees and community members in a variety of ways. And I really am passionate about connecting people to the frameworks I'm going to show this morning about your own learning journeys and how to activate that. It's also the 3rd channel I operate in. And it's a really good time to tell you that I'm a cartoonist too. So mildly funny, cute, but mildly funny. And I didn't have a lot of espresso this morning yet. I'm going to have it afterwards because I was already excited enough to be on stage, and I didn't need to be caffeinated and excited. What I do want to do, I'll weave some of these in, but I do want to say that playfulness is it's a good part of learning. To be able to laugh actually enhances our learning. It connects an emotion to what we're learning about too. So not everything I'm talking about today will be funny. Some of it will be serious, but I did want to add in and just be very authentic that I am a little bit playful. So let's just jump into a little bit of theory. Why a conference? Why a conference from a neuroscience perspective, from a learning perspective? Is that one of the things that, first off, I have fallen down so many rabbit holes researching more for this speech today because there's so much amazing information out there about neuroscience and the brain and what they're finding now. And it was almost overwhelming. I had to walk it back a little bit because I'm actually not a neuroscientist. But I learned a lot about, we're just scratching the surface right now and really mapping the mind through electromagnetic resonance and a whole bunch of different ways where people can see what part of our brains are being activated while we are thinking. They'll put folks in an MRI and ask them to come up with solutions or creativity or problem solving, and then they're mapping some of that. And so I think, have folks heard about left brain, right brain? And they found out a lot about that because of brain injury. And so someone would have an injury and they'd find out that, oh, this is connected right side to left side. They also, about 20 years ago, were saying, oh, left brain, right brain. Some people use their left brain and some people use their right brain. What we're finding now was that that's been a little bit debunked. What we're finding now is that we're using lots of different brain centers. And what we're really trying to do is enrich our learning by connecting to the fact that we're using lots of brain centers. So I wouldn't categorize yourself with that. I would also say my caveat, my warning for neuroscience is that we're just beginning. And it's amazing, and you should pay attention, but we're still just beginning on it. One of the things they are learning, though, is that when they put folks, they put folks into an MRI, or they do some studies with little animals, in terms of what's happening when you are creating a habit. So what we are finding is that we have a habit. Our brain pays a little bit less attention. This area of our brain is the basal ganglia. It does some mapping. And once we figure out our way to work, then we can pay a little bit less attention. It's actually kind of an energy saver. Our brain packages that into a little memory packet. And what we're finding is that when it comes to learning, I love watching TED Talks, but I'll watch a lot of them, and sometimes I won't quite remember what happened because I packaged it a little bit. And so what happens is that when we introduce something new, it could just be a new song, or here there's a lot of newness, we will retain that information more deeply. So why a conference versus just reading a book? And I love reading books too, but why a conference is because of all the connections that we'll start making with ideas and people. And one of the things that happens with that is that it puts us in a really good learning zone. We find that, yes, low stress, me hanging out and watching a great speech online in my office computer, it's a little low stress. So I might not retain as much of that. I might pick up one one thought or two, but I won't remember much about it. Sometimes I don't even remember the people's names who have shared this amazing stuff. But when I am in person with them or hear them speak or talk to other folks, that's what happens when we are in a moderate stress, because it's something new and I'm picking it up, and basically your basal ganglia says, hey, pay attention to this is new, and we have to remap it. And so we're remapping with one another some new connections and some new lessons and new learnings. Basal ganglia, just to give you one other example of that, is have you ever been at a restaurant and someone said, hey, the hostess says, have a great meal, and you say, you too. Like, that's just the same with flight attendants, have a great flight, you too. Like, the other one is someone says, hi, and you say, fine, thanks, how are you? Those are our patterns just running. And so for us, we're in the perfect spot, hopefully, about just being in a little bit of moderate stress. It's a little bit new, maybe a new city, remapping, where am I going to eat, who am I going to eat with, all of that, what am I going to learn, is we're in the perfect learning zone. You can also see on the charts, too, that I showed earlier, the high stress piece. That is a different part of our brain that could trigger our amygdala, which this doesn't feel safe, and so we have more of a fight or flight or freeze kind of response happening to that. So what I would encourage us all to do is be super, super friendly, because that will hopefully help everybody just remain in the moderate stress zone and not in the high stress zone. I also want to acknowledge that we have diverse ways of learning. I tried to blend that in a little bit today, and we're also a diverse group of people. And I just want to bring that up because this is important. This means that we don't know everything. I think you've probably heard, you don't know what you don't know, that phrase. This is one of the beautiful things about diversity, is because when you get to listen and truly listen to one another, and folks from different backgrounds than your own, or we all have different lived experiences, they have treasure for us. They have wisdom for us because of their lived experiences, because of their identity lenses. So not only do we have different ways of learning, but we have different ways of living. And so I just want to activate that and bring that presence into this space too. So I want to back up, not even back up, I want to move forward and say, why a conference? I don't want to answer this for you. I'd like you to answer it. I want you to just take a moment to do a little bit of reflection about what brought you here today. And on page 14 of your brochures, if you picked up a paper copy. If not, feel free to jot this down or just think about it. Just think to yourself, what am I here for? What am I seeking? If you are a treasure hunter, what are you hoping to find at this conference? And just take a moment to set an intention. There's a lot of research on the intelligence of silence and reflection and giving ourselves a chance to think, and we are using different parts of our brain when we do that, including executive functioning, which I'll get into a little bit later, but thank you for taking that moment. I also want to add this, if you think about your intention, if you can, add an emotion to that, because emotion is actually deepening our learning. You know the Maya Angelou quote, people won't remember what you say so much, but they remember how you made them feel. Think about, what's the feeling to that? Is there an excitement because you want to learn something new? Is there a hopefulness? Are you looking to be re-energized? Is there any kind of a feeling word that you can just attach to that? And it's okay if you don't have one yet, but just to kind of connect that. That is a way that when we connect our feelings to what our intentions are, that it deepens it a little bit. Fantastic. I'd like to actually start the interaction part of this morning's program. Just if folks can, we're going to do this just 2 minutes real quick. You can turn to somebody nearby, one-on-one, so make a pair. And also, if you're at a table at 3, obviously, be a triad, include folks in. And just share why you were here. I'm going to give about 2 minutes for this, so about 1 minute each way. I'm not timing it so much, but please go ahead and start. Just share why you were here. Share with someone next to you. 1, timing. Oh. Yeah. Thank you. Still end it. All right, about 30 more seconds. Make sure everyone has a chance to talk. All right. If I can bring you back, attention back on stage. I'm so sorry to interrupt. You can pay attention to the chime. This is a great conversation. Thank you. That was good energy. That was good connectivity. Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt some great conversations that just started there. Part of the purpose of this morning for me is so that you continue some of those conversations with folks. That's a ready-made question now that when you meet new people to say, tell me a little bit more about why you're here. One of the great questions I learned from one of my mentors, Dr. Dan Garvey, was we were serving on a board for semester at sea and we were onboarding the new president, and Dan asked the new president, Marjorie, how can we help you be great? And that was just basically every time we've onboarded somebody, that's one of the questions we ask too. So this is a good question too. What are you seeking here? Because when you say that, you're starting that synergy and that connection of how can I help you be great is part of that too. A little biofeedback going on. Let's try that. All right, I'm going to move on quickly here. A little bit more about the neuroscience of learning. Just two concepts. Neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. It still sound funny on the mic? I'm gonna go, okay, that's better. Is that better? Yeah, thanks for the feedback. So two pieces I just wanna cover about neuroscience is neurogenesis, which is basically, they used to think that all of our brain neurons were made just when we were kids, but they're finding actually that we can regenerate. We are lifelong learners. That when we learn something, our brains are still growing all throughout our lives. It is more when we're younger, but basically we are still lifelong learners. And so you already know this because you are signed up for the learning conference, but I want to reinforce that for you. And the other concept is neuroplasticity, which is that our brains can change. I think it's so cool, some of the turns or phrases we already use about brains, like we want to just put our finger on something, we want to grasp an idea, or we can change our mind. So neuroplasticity is a little bit about this, is that when we learn something new that we incorporate into our framework of the world, our mind changes a little bit. There's some synapses and connections that we use less when we learn something more and we refocus on a different way of thinking. Much like Marie Kondo. Anyone doing, yes. Your brains have changed because of that, because you are now actually using a new framework of like, does this bring me joy? That's a little bit of neuroplasticity at work. As opposed, some neuroplasticity could be, I want to collect all of the things. And this is different. This is, I want to just make my life simpler and honor the things that I do have and release the other things that I don't need to give on. So that's a little bit of neuroplasticity. We make new connections with one another. I think one of the really neat things is at a conference, we literally are making new connections with new people. And so that is neuroplasticity at work as well. Just a couple words on heightening awareness. We're learning more and more about the brains, which makes it imperative for us to know more and more about ourselves. It makes it imperative for us to have heightened self-awareness and awareness of others, because other folks are already aware and are using that. I'm not saying in a bad way, but technology already knows this. If anyone's ever streamed a show, it goes on to the next show. You no longer have to click that it goes on to the next show. That's because we're living in an attention economy. And so for us, it's really imperative to basically activate our filters and our own self-awareness, especially as people learn more and more about neuroscience and how our brains work. The color red, for example. Please don't do this right now, but if you pull out your phone and look, if you have messages, what color is it? It's red, because biologically we're trained to pay attention to bright colors, and especially red. And so that's one of the things as we heighten awareness. We need to make sure that we're essentially our own CEOs, our own chief energy officers, where we put our time and energy. Our own chief attention officer could be another way of saying it, but I like CEO for the implications. An example of that too is, again, don't do this right now, but later look at your phones. Your phones, if you click on maps, will probably tell you how far you are from home. I'm a 17-hour drive from home. I was clicking on maps yesterday to walk around, and it knows, because it's smart. And so that's okay, but that means we have to increase our own awareness as well. Otherwise, we'll be distracted. There's a lot of technological squirrels out there. There's a lot of squirrels out there in terms of also what you are focusing in on and what's important. So CEO could also be Chief Essentialism Officer, which is another good book and resource to connect to, about where you put your time, attention, and energy, and filtering that as well. I also want to just comment a little bit. This comes out of a little bit of design thinking, but they're also finding that it maps in the brain as well, is what's called divergent thinking and convergent thinking. And I'm sure some folks have heard about that a little bit here already, but I want to bring it up because I feel like this is also part of the conference. Divergent thinking is, let's collect a bunch of new ideas, and convergent thinking is, which ones could I apply? And not only that, we're going to sessions that also do assessment. And that's part of convergent thinking. How did this work? Did this really work? Does it have legs? Should we use it? Was it effective with our constituents? And so it's both. It's the magic of the word and. It's not either or. I wouldn't call anyone, you were just a divergent thinker and you were the convergent thinker. You may have some natural tendencies. I'm very good at ideation. I can come up with 100 ideas, and I love to surround myself with people who are really good at helping me filter and then pick the one that just gets traction and gets going. So I did want to acknowledge that this is another part, and they can map it where this is happening in our brains. Divergent thinking is part of the default network, which is a little bit of daydreaming. It's like the good thinking you do when you're on a run or in the shower or driving, and if you've ever driven with just turning the music off and just listening to your own thoughts, some of that is the default mode network thinking. And then there's the executive functioning thinking, which has to make a decision. Like, let's do this. And so we are using different parts of our brain as this goes on. And we all are using both. So I would never want someone to categorize themselves as an either or. We use both of these. They both also have their own aha moments. These are good ideas, and there's that spark when you come up with an idea, whether or not you use it or not. There's a little dopamine hit. And then also there's an aha when you use something and you're like, that went really well, and here's the stats on that. Here's the key metrics on that, the key performance indicators. All right, that's some of the neuroscience. Let's move in. I have one more little theory part, but I'm just going to talk about the aha moment, which is, from a neuroscience perspective, and they can map this in our brains, it's when we have a sudden conscious change in our representation of our problem or a stimulus, and we just have, sometimes they're big ahas and sometimes they're little ahas. And these are the networks they're using, the default mode network, the salient network, which is all about communication and self-awareness and awareness of others, which I find interesting too. It's because we also have salient identities. That's a part of this network, as our awareness and kind of our EQ, our emotional intelligence, and then our executive functioning. So I have an aha. One of the ways they test for aha moments is they put folks into MRIs and they'll ask them some word questions or they'll ask them some creativity questions. And an example of a question that I'm going to give it to you and then you can find me later, is they'll give 3 words out and they will ask people to find a word that works with each of those 3 words. So the example, they'll test folks and they'll watch their brain waves. One of the examples they give is tooth, heart, and potato. And there's a word that fits with all of those. And we'll just leave that there. I'll come back to that later, find me later to do that. But this is how they start testing what's happening in the brain when you do that. And they're finding that they can actually see when the aha moment happens in folks' brains. So what I wanted to do, though, was just put a really quick, just give you an aha puzzle right now, which is a visual to perhaps figure out what the pun is on this one. So, and also this is cultural too, because not everybody might know, I heard it over here, that this is gingerbread. So some people are like, that's bread, but what is, oh, that's anyway, so that's what happened in your mind. What happened in your mind a little bit is that aha moment where you are trying to figure it out. And also we're trying to figure things out intuitively, but also analytically. So this might have just popped up intuitively, but for other people, it might have been analytical. And that's just when we figure things out, that's how it goes. That if it doesn't pop up immediately, we will start thinking, okay, that's bread, that might be, gingerbread, like that starts to become analytical. So there's your little own aha moment. I want to say one other thing about cartooning, which is I started cartooning after the ending of a relationship. And I had always doodled, but the difference was I bought a tablet and I started doodling, and I then also, it happened to be close to the start of Facebook, and so I started posting, and then I realized that my cartoons started to become vehicles of love and connection. But the other thing that happened is that to me, cartooning is an example of neuroplasticity because it shifted. I look for cartoons everywhere. I hear them in songs, I see them in menus, I think about them in the supermarket. I wake up in the middle of the night, and that didn't happen until I started drawing. And so that is an example of neuroplasticity of where we change our filters. And I bring that up because I want to jump into, we have a quick activity, and then I want to jump into a framework of creativity that I'm hoping helps you change how you do your important work in the world, because you are world changers. So super quick activity right now. You can all stay seated. I'd like you to look, I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but I'd like you to look around the room, and I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to notice everything that is blue, and then I'm going to ask you a couple questions. So just quietly to yourself. All right, and if you're comfortable, please close your eyes. If not, maybe just put your head down. So please, all at once, shout out everything in the room that you saw that was purple. Okay, I'm hearing some. I'm wearing a purple shirt, that helps. Okay, now shout out everything you saw that was blue. All right. Thank you. And I will promise not to be tricky in anything else for the rest of the talk. To me, when I do this with groups of people, I'll take wisdom from the room. And the wisdom that has come up time and time again is that there's more than one lesson in this. One lesson is that we're going to find what we're looking for. So it is important to set an intention, or it is important to set a goal or a vision, because we point our energy in that direction. The other thing is that there's always more to learn. So this is the power of the word and I want to leverage this a little bit today. And so you've already set an intention, and there's always more to learn. And this is also another piece where diversity does come in, because we have different perspective and views. In this room right now, people saw different things because of their positionality. I saw one person start to get up and look around, and then they sat down because no one else was doing that. But that's also the viewpoint. There's also a portion of our folks in the room who may be colorblind, who may not have been able to participate in that fully, but they also might have listened more to what I was saying because of that. And so we need all perspectives. And so how do we pull people in, and how do we ask questions so we can hear their perspectives? That's the power of the word and I want to link learning and creativity for you. Who here is creative? Look around the room, see who raises their hand. All right, I'm seeing about half. That's great. We're going to work on that. Creativity comes in lots of forms. It can be science, it can be the arts, it can be any kind of discovery that you're having. So this is one of the frameworks, a last little piece of theory for this part that I want to give to you all in terms of helping you frame a paradigm of how amazingly powerful you are, how much agency you have. So there was an author, Gordon Mackenzie, who wrote Orbiting the Giant Hairball, and he used to work for Hallmark cards and then moved on to shoebox greetings, and it's a great book to read just about organizational culture. But one of his passions is talking to people about creativity, and he went across the country and talked to schools. And in first grade, he asked the question, who here is creative? And what do you think happened when he asked that in a classroom? Everybody raises their hands, and how do they raise their hands? Totally, thank you for playing in the back. Totally, okay, and then he would go to third graders. Who here is creative to the third graders? About half. You were operating at a really great third grade level. And then he would go to sixth graders. And there would be one hand, maybe hesitantly, or other people would point at like, oh yeah, that person over there, that person's really creative, that's the person. And so there's a whole bunch of, I'm sure you could do a ton of research about what happened with inner critic or categorizing ourselves, but what I want to do is connect us to how amazingly creative we are. I'm going to give you a definition of creativity and then a framework of creativity that I hope will help you connect to how creative you are. Because quite honestly, I actually think you're some of the most creative people I've ever met. And I'm serious when I say that, and I'll tell you more about that later. So there's a lot of amazing research on creativity right now, which I love because I'm an artist and I do leadership, and this is fantastic. And so one of the working definitions is that they do for research purposes is that creativity is original and effective. Is it original and effective? And by original, it doesn't mean original, it's never been thought of. It just needs to be original to you. So when you get a best practice idea and you get to bring it back to your organization, you are being creative because that idea was original to you and you're using it to be, was it effective? You use it for problem solving. A quick example of this, I was traveling with Semester at Sea as one of the deans, and the students, because folks teach you stuff, I'm a dean and I'm teaching them a little bit, but students are teaching me, they're like, Lisa, you should check out Google Translate. So I'd known about Google Translate, I'd used it online before, but I downloaded the app, and you can use Google Translate for voice, so to talk to folks, which is amazing. But I did not know that you can use it for images. And the students told me, hey, check this out. So I was traveling, I was in Shanghai, and we've been in big cities for a while, and so I wanted to just kind of get out, and so people were like, oh, go to this little place, Hangzhou, which is 2 million people. But Shanghai is like 24 million, so to them it was little. So I traveled solo for part of that trip. When I got there, I was staying at the hotel, and this greeted me. And so is this a $5 water bottle, or is this free? And then I remembered, and it would have been probably like 500 yuan, I can't remember. But anyways, I remembered I have Google Translate, and I had Wi-Fi, so you need the image. So I clicked this. This to me was original and effective. I was so excited about this. It is a free gift drink. And you can still, I've told this story like 10 times, and I'm still super excited. That's a little bit of the dopamine, aha. And this was creative. It was creative problem solving for me, and it expanded my agency as a traveler, especially as a single woman, gay traveler. And also in that country too, I stood out because of my white ethnicity. And so that to me though expanded my agency, particularly around the identities of feeling a little bit more vulnerable as a woman traveling. Oh, I got this. And so it was original and then effective. And it was also a free drink, so it was effective then too. And so that's and I didn't make up any part of this Google Translate. So that's not original to me, but it was my original usage of it. So I want you to lean into using what you find, because you are being creative in your problem solving for that too, as you learning is a part of creativity as well. So that brings us to the 4C model of creativity. I'm going to go through this a little bit briefly. This is, I find it really powerful. Kaufman and Bagetto have done some research on this and just basically given us a better updated research definition of creativity. They have big C, pro C, little c, and mini c. Big C, it's big creativity. We're comparing ourselves often to big C, which is why I think only half the room raised their hand with creativity. It's folks like Maya Angelou, Mozart, Van Gogh, Beyonce. I was going to have her up here now. I wish I had, but I didn't. Einstein, Bill Gates, folks who they're genius in their field. They've impacted on culture and world. And so often when we think creativity, we are comparing ourselves to them, and so then we keep our hands down. But the other definitions of creativity help too. There's pro C, people who are professional. So professional photographer, professional designer, game designer, whatnot, professional cake makers. So sometimes we are comparing ourselves to them, and we're like, nah, I just take some snapshots. So we're not creative because we're thinking professional creativity. Little c, this is where all of you are creative. Little c is when you've put together a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet or a proposal or an annual report, or when you're driving someplace and you see there's a traffic jam, there's a faster way to go. This is you being creative. I also have socks down there because if you pick out some fun socks to wear, you are being creative. Anybody want to show off your sock game? Show off your sock game, people. Oh, I see some right here. These are Chihuly socks, so I'm representing for Seattle. That's creativity. That is little c. That's little c is when you've seen all the Pinterest fails before. You were still being creative when you tried to make those cupcakes. So you are being creative and leading into that. And the last one is so powerful. Mini c. Mini creativity is transformational learning. It's just learning. We are being creative. We are creating new connections when we learn. And so I want everyone to embrace part of that creativity part, because what happens when we embrace creativity and that framework is that it's connected to our impact and influence. And so right here, you can see big C, pro C, little c, and mini c, where our circle, where our sphere of influence is. And you all are definitely pro C. I can think of very few things that are as more powerfully creative as the work that you do, because you have a vision for the future of having a better world in all the wide variety of ways that you do it. And that is some of the most unbelievably meaningful and powerful creativity that we have. And so I'm so grateful for the work that you do. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here talking to you, because you are wildly creative, because you're helping to create a new future. You're helping to solve issues. And some of the issues you're solving are actually some life and death issues for people. And so your sphere of influence, and the more that you embrace this concept that you are wildly creative, the more agency I think you'll have. And the more that you also understand that the constituents that you work with are also wildly creative, that's also empowering. That sense of agency just spreads. So this is why I wanted to present the creativity framework to you all. You expand your sphere of influence. If you don't think yourself as creative, you're still doing it. When you think of yourself as creative, you expand a little bit more. So learning, creativity, and curiosity. This comes to the next part that I want to do with you all, is have you create your own curious question so that you can actually ask your curious question as you go about the rest of today with one another. And you can also, you can collect these. Like I have a set of at least 52. I collect curious good questions. What I'd like you all to do is come up with your own. And again, original or effective. Original could be, I like that question, I'm going to use it. It doesn't mean you have to come up with a question that's never been asked before. So the way that we do this is I want you also to have this curiosity habit, because when you ask a question, you're also pulling other people into the conversation. This is actually a way of equity, of not just being like, this is my answer, but hey, I have a question for you. So one little framework to give you that I find super powerful is the framework of appreciative inquiry, which is building upon strengths, successes, and future. And it's not saying that the other questions aren't good, but it's really powerful to ask questions based in this way. So instead of saying, like, what was horrible last year? You could say, what was a pinch point for you? But the flip side of that and the appreciative inquiry side of that is, and how did you solve for it? Or where are you still learning? What's your learning edge with that? So some other sample questions, because I think this will help you design your own curious question. And also, again, feel free to borrow one of these. This could be your curious question for the conference. What's a recent success you've had? What's a wish you have for the upcoming year? What have you found to be something rewarding about your work or exciting? So I'm going to stop there because I want you to come up with your own ahas. What I'd like you to do is just take a couple of minutes. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Sorry, this looked like 3. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to come up with your own curious question. And again, there's space in your handouts to do that. So take a moment just to think and reflect. All right, are we good? Folks have enough time? Was that good? Okay. Again, I mentioned that I collect questions. Other people have said them before, and I collect them and I use them. What I'd like for you all to do is we're going to have a chance to share with one another. And this is just a note. I want to also heighten our awareness of our identity lenses when we share. That truly share to hear the other person's response. This is one of the areas that we can widen our perspective is by listening to other people, and just to have that kind of EQ, that emotional intelligence of people selling identities when you ask. And so I would say too, Corn is all ears. I'm here if you need to talk, because the other piece to that is this is about connection, and this is about offering grace for one another, and it is about offering kindness to one another too. Giving people the space to actually hear their thoughts and hold that space for them after you ask your question. What is their answer? So what I'd like folks to do is to pair up again. It could be the same person, it could be somebody new, depending upon table configuration. And just to give you a sense of what we'll do the next couple minutes is that I do want actually time for share outs. So I'm going to give folks 3 minutes each way, even though it looks like I gave you 4 minutes. I'm going to just cut that a little bit for right now. My apologies. 3 minutes each way. This is going to be timed because of some equity. We will do an official switch with chimes. So I'm going to start this and we'll time it. And what you will do is that first person, you ask your curious question and you just hear the other person's insights. So you don't have to respond. You don't have to, we sometimes are thinking about our response or let me tell you about how I would answer my own curious question. That's cool. You know what, if the person is done talking and there's time to do that, but right now you are just holding that listening space, which I think is an equity practice too. So first person, ask your curious question. I'll keep the timer going, let that first responder have their time, and then we'll switch. And then I want to take some shouts from the audience, because I want to hear, and I want you all to hear some of the wisdom in the room. So please pair up and get a chance to do that. And begin. Yeah, is that okay that I'm trumping it? Okay. It might be for Sharon. Does it feel good? Was it feel good? Okay. All right. If folks can wrap up their thought. I'd ask folks to wrap up that thought and switch. I want to make sure that the other person has enough time to go too, so I'm starting the timer for the other person. Thank you. Those are my volunteers. Those are my volunteers. Yes. If you want to give them stickers for people who. All right, if folks can finish up their last sentence. You can. What I'd like to do is segue into hearing from people. The beautiful thing about this conference is that you have a break coming up to continue. So just hit pause. Folks, I'm so sorry to interrupt your amazing conversations. My apologies. But thank you for having them. Can you feel the energy in the room go up? One of the things that I love about appreciative inquiry is that everyone has spoken. And it's a very inclusive way for people to start reflecting upon powerful questions. And if we were doing a strategic planning session, we would go into also putting all of your ideas or your questions up on a board and then filtering or patterning some of those. But we have the beauty of a conference app. So please feel free to share or tweet your curious questions so other people can benefit from your originality and apply it to their own effectiveness. We'd also love to hear a couple of share outs from folks of what you're curious, either what your curious question was or the one you were just asked. It's cool either way. We've got some volunteers with microphones, and also because I'm an educator, if you raise your hand, you get a sticker. Could we hear from the audience? Yes, please. Your name and your question.
My name is Winifred, and I work with the Wikimedia Foundation. And I was talking with Rochelle, and she asked me a really nice question, which was, what gives you energy?
Thank you, Rochelle. And, all right, over here. And she got a sticker. It's one of my cartoons. Yes.
Am I next? Hi. I'm Loris. I'm from the Elmina B. Sewell Foundation in Portland, Maine, the other Portland. One of my questions was, how can we shift power dynamics within our organizational culture and structure to allow for greater flow of creativity for everyone on the team?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that's a great how might we question, too, which actually they use in design thinking all the time. If you were familiar with the IDEO Center in Stanford, that's one of their core how might we. This is a beautiful example of how might we shift. Sorry, one more time. I see a hand up here. Let's go back there first. Take just a couple more. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Adrienne with the Sisters of Charity Foundation of Cleveland. And my question, I have to look at it. How do you center people with lived experience into learning practice so that their voices are heard and reflected in strategy?
Thank you.
I'm Juwan Harris from the Kresge Foundation. My question is, how do you navigate the challenge of working in an environment that doesn't embrace learning as much as you do?
People are feeling that one. People are feeling that one. You know, I've talked to some other folks at different foundations and and organizations, nonprofit organizations, and that's a part of it. Is this safety? Not wanting to take risks, not wanting to make sure everything works because the stakes are high, and so it's the beautiful word "and." Yes, we want to have all the stuff that works. And we want to have the stats that prove it and the evaluations that prove it. But and where can we stretch and explore? And how can you have cohorts on this learning journey with you? Thank you. Let's take one more if we can for time's sake.
I hope I get a sticker. Paul Baudet with Wilberforce Foundation. And my curious question, and it's eating me alive, is what word links tooth, heart, and potato? Seriously.
I didn't figure it out. Can we, anyone in the audience? Over here, real loud. Sweet. Sweet. I know it came first. I didn't get it either. Sweet tooth, sweet heart, sweet potato. Thank you. Thank you. We have one more question here. One more. We'll take two more. We'll take two more, because I love hearing the questions. So in the back, one more. Okay, one more here.
So I'm Delphine from the Wikimedia Foundation also. What's the thing you've done recently that was very new and that was something you tried out, and how did it work? How did it go?
Yes. I can't wait to have these conversations with you all. Thank you. All right. Anybody? Right in the middle. Nope, sorry, they went the other way. I can't see really well.
Hi, I'm Clara with Meteor Network, and I actually am going to share Fontaine from Irvine Foundation's question, which was, how do we make learning more fun?
Nice. Can you see some of the energy in these questions? Can you see some of the equity in these questions too? These are great questions. I know I really appreciate Gio for the PDF they've shared around equity. And some of it's question-based, like how can we imbue equity into everything we do and all the meetings that we're doing too. I am so excited to hear and read about more of your questions. And thank you. That was a part of a learning experience in combining learning and curiosity and creativity all together. And again, the creativity in the room is off the charts. Where do we go from here? I think where we go is we continue to ask questions. We might even ask folks we work with and our constituents, What do you wish we were asking you? Ask them to design their own question. How can we make this more empowering? How can we spark off of one another? Speaking of sparking, I like the firefly. This is about our own sparks. This is about our own sparks inside, our own ahas, but also making the space for other people to lean into their own agency and have their own sparks too, because that's where the change and the power happens, that we're all in community doing this together at the conference. And that's a pretty beautiful thing when we're all in community together. So I'm going to leave you just with one slide of some of my resources that I used, in case you're curious. And I have one last question for you. Who here is creative? Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a great conference.